happy Wednesday, everybody. Hope you all are having a wonderful day and an excellent week. Welcome to Midnight Hatter Live, the weekly variety show where we talk Gundam, Gunpla, and gaming. I am your host, Steven, aka Midnight Hatter, and joining me as always, the Blue Gamer Gundam explainer, Adam Blue. How are you this evening?
Hey, doing good. Glad that we could catch up, do our kind of weekly start of our whatever talk. I
Yeah.
kind of like what we have on the docket for today because I think it can be interesting conversation of where we can go with this
It's
topic.
either going to be fun or it's going to be an absolute catastrophe, but I think that even if it's a catastrophe, that's kind of part of the fun, right?
Yeah, it's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Exactly. And it does feel like a long time since it's just been you and I chatting. Obviously, the last couple weeks we've had some rock star guests from the RVA Gunpla crowd. So
Yeah,
I love being able to get Ellie and Nick on the show. That was a lot of fun.
that
And
was.
then it also occurred to me that this month I had forgotten to do the Patreon spotlight. Not only did I forget to post a topic for what this month's project would be, but I also forgot to shine a light on the folks that did submit a piece. So I've got that
Yeah,
queued up for us as well.
cool.
And yeah, so I think it'll be a fun little adventure.
Yeah,
um,
definitely.
but yeah, what have you been getting into Gundam wise this week, Adam?
Yeah, well, let's see. So I shot and edited and uploaded that video on the GM2, the Robot Spirits GM2, and what was unfortunate about it is, at the beginning I have the disclaimer about the mic audio messing up. What was unfortunate, I recorded the whole thing and I go to listen to the audio and I'm like, oh my god, what happened? And I still don't know if it was a different mic that it ended up picking up, but the audio sounded horrible to where normally you would redo it, but because of modern audio AI stuff that you can use online, I was able to use some of the Adobe programs to fix the audio to make it where it's passable. It still had some tingy robotic sounds to it, but i- there's there's times where I will rarely reshoot a video if it's like completely like something happened technically where the video audio is bad and I have to do it. But because a lot of times is I have a rough outline, but then I try to wing it, make it organic as I'm having the discussion. I feel like
Right.
if I have to do it again, and this has happened before, then I feel like I'm forcing or acting because, well, I said it like this last time. That seemed like a good setup. Let me do that again. And I'm like, no, no, no. So a lot of my time was spent contemplating that. But
But I mean,
um,
it was a cool video. I especially loved when you were talking about like the butterfly joints in the arm.
Oh, yeah, I know, it's crazy the articulation,
Yeah,
how
double
far they
hinge.
go. Eh
It's pretty cool. We need to get you some Jobbyisms. So, like, because obviously
I
Jobby's whole
know.
thing is having his, like, gimmicks of, like, beautiful spread and, like,
It
ab crunch.
it's funny because I think about that as I'm doing the videos, and I notice a
It's
thing
like
I
you don't wanna
noticed I do
copy
a lot.
him, but, like, at the
No,
same
no, no,
time, it's
no,
a lot of
where
the
sometimes I'll be like, "Oh, that's badass. Oh, that's bad." That's like something I, tend to
that
do
is
a lot,
badass.
but there's this other YouTuber I watch that, does, Godzilla collectibles reviews.
Mm,
And it's hilarious because he is pretty much impersonating Jobby, and it's probably because he just watches him a lot and he does
right.
mention him, but he does the same type of editing, and it's like, I almost like it because I almost feel like it's a subgenre in itself, the way
It
Jobby
is.
does his videos because there's a lot of production value in it, and so I could see where someone can wanna pick up on it. It's very contagious and fun, and then them do it themselves, and, it makes it pretty entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, it can be fun, but yeah, I think everyone should strive to do their own thing, obviously. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
it's those things are gonna happen organically. I think,
right.
uh I think one of the things I've tried to stop myself from saying is like the what it is. Like what it is that, not
Oh,
that phrase just annoys me. So if you guys pick up on anything that Adam and I say a lot, be sure to bully us in the chat about it.
okay, there is something that I think you say not it's, funny you say that, although I think I do it too.
That might
Where
have been something that you and I rubbed off on each other with
okay,
that.
maybe that's what it is, yeah, 'cause
Well, and part of it is that we always try to seg each other up for different
yeah,
segments where it's like,
that's probably
well,
what it
on
is.
that note, let's pivot over
Yeah.
to
But no, I was when I was editing, one of my videos the other day, the another thing that comes up that I do a lot is how many times I say, or Now, it might not be as much when it's live and we're talking, but maybe when I'm thinking of what I'm trying to say about the thing as I'm recording, tons of uhs and ums that I'm having to remove. And I'll do interesting, this, blah, 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 or interesting, but like I start sentences all the time with that. And it's like, Adam, come on.
You know, honestly, that's been one of the blessings of having a toddler is that because she repeats to me so many things that I say, it becomes apparent to me
Oh,
what I say a lot. So, like, one of the things my toddler started doing to me is like we'll be playing together, and she goes, "Right, right, right," and it's like, oh my gosh, I practically end every sentence with "right."
wow. Yeah, because and that's almost like the way you're just communicating to her specifically because you're trying to make sure maybe she is understanding a concept,
Yeah, and,
but then
"Hey, we
she's
stack up
picking
the
it up.
blocks vertically, right? And then we're gonna go eat dinner, right?"
Yeah, wow, that's interesting. It's very
Oh,
interesting.
fun stuff, man.
Yeah.
My daughter is the best Gunpla kit that I ever built.
No, that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
But speaking of Gunpla kits that I've never built, so like I mentioned, every month I've been trying to do this Patreon creator spotlight where we pick a theme, a topic from just a random assortment of words, and everyone who is a contributor over on Patreon, we create something, whether it's a Gunpla, whether it's a poem, short story, maybe it's a whole video game, who knows, whatever anyone's capable of. But the idea is to evoke that theme, that topic in the piece. I mentioned that actually this is exciting. Is tomorrow is the day that I'm getting stuff ready, but Friday is the day that we're actually laying down the floor in here. So finally, I'll be able to
Oh, neat.
finally get my work area back. But I wasn't able to finish my project from December, which was the theme was Echo.
Yeah.
Um, and of course, the project that I had in mind was leveraging the V8 and Mercurius, you know, Arduino project that I was working on, because the V8 itself it's supposed to be not piloted by Hero and Troa. It's the scenes from Gundam Wing when they had downloaded the AI like that was created from Hero and Troa, and it was their echoes inside the mobile suits. So that's
Oh,
where the LED comes into play and all of that stuff. The LED is working, but obviously I haven't finished, painting and finishing the actual model kit. So it's like the electronic part is working, but
yeah,
everything
that's
else
cool.
associated with it isn't
The most
isn't
fun you
good
get
to
out
go
of the
yet.
way.
Yeah.
That's neat.
So of course, yeah, typical of me, I don't finish a project, but we did have a submission from Ultronomous. Let me pull up. I have this is just the document here, and I won't read the whole thing because and it's not super long. It is just kind of a primer piece that is it's a sci-fi piece. There's war and struggle going on here, but really what I want to hone in on is the final little soliloquy that closes out the piece, because I think that this is probably the most powerful part of it, and this is really is what encapsulates the theme, right? Is there I go again, right?
Okay.
So the narrator says, "I've seen this sight before. I wonder how many times I must endure, how many times I endured. History repeats. For every subtle difference, there are constants that can't be denied, echoes across time that are destined to occur. We can defy those echoes, but we never deny them. I'm just another echo. I am a constant. I've wondered, am I the only one who threw the stone to create the wave? Am I the ripple traveling out into the lake of infinity? Perhaps I'm the stone itself causing the waves. Now I sink beneath now I sink beneath the tide, observing the echoes I've left in my wake. My lord, we've arrived. I've seen this sight before. Men and women clad in colorful costumes all rallied against me. I hear their boasts, their righteous fury and proud declarations, how their eyes burn as they gaze upon me. It no longer matters where I originated, nor how long I've repeated this journey. I won't run or hide from my fate, but embrace it. My name is Konshu. I am a constant. and echo across all time. Surrender or perish.
Wow.
Powerful piece there. It gives me big time Percy Shelley vibes. Like the whole is it Percy Shelley, the look upon ye works and
Don't know.
tremble? I'm sure someone literary in chat will correct me on that. Um, the Ozymandias piece. I'm pretty sure it was Percy Shelley that wrote Ozymandias, but yeah, very cool stuff.
Yeah, that is. Wow. Well done.
So yeah, I wanted to share that and wanted to highlight that because obviously Ultronus talented writer,
Yeah.
and really this is like these are the types of it's actually funny that he submitted this because here we are talking about Gquax, and we've often mused about the sort of flowery language and the sort of the advanced themes and the pontificating ideas that Anno has tried to communicate in things like Evangelion. Are we going to get that kind of stuff um from Sieg Axe? Maybe, probably, but this gives me that same sort of vibe. And of course, Ultronus being a big Anno fan and trying to sell me on Evangelion,
Yeah.
it definitely it resonates with that, right? You have a character that is that's basically speaking the theme into life.
Yeah. No, yeah, I'm blown away by this, actually. I was not expecting this, uh, to be
Neither
shown
was I,
off.
and honestly, thank you, Ultronus. Shout out, because like I said, I don't want the I don't want the Patreon creator spotlight to just be all Gunpla. I want it to be like if you're into miniature
Yeah.
painting, do a miniature painting, stuff like that. So we are going to pick that up back in February now that I'm not forgetting it again. But so yeah, I wanted to at least give a shout out to Ultronymous who submitted that for December, and then I forgot January. So
Nah, great stuff. Great stuff. Yeah, that's inspiring. Hmm.
yeah, so Adam, I need to get you to submit something.
I know. I mean, now that I'm seeing this, it's really making the gears turn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, man. But on to tonight's topic du jour. You know, obviously, I went with kind of a trolly, clickbaity title, but obviously, you and I haven't seen G Cucks yet. It did release in Japan, I believe.
Yeah.
At last recording, the um, the total revenue for the release has been like $9 million, something somewhere around there. Um,
Okay.
yeah, I saw Zeonic Scans had posted about it on Twitter the other day, and the opening weekend was only around like what 1 million, and it was like, oh, I didn't have a frame of reference. Like,
Yeah,
is
I
that
was comparing
successful?
it
Is it
to,
not?
like, Kraven the Hunter, and Kraven the Hunter made a lot more, but at the same time, I don't know what to expect from a Japanese anime that's only open in Japan,
Yep.
like, what is the audience? What are their expectations are probably different. The scale to economy of the budget, is probably different for making something like that, and that's a relatively short turnaround for announcing something that would be then going into theaters.
Yeah. So so I wanted to compare it to something that was at least, within the realm of shouting distance. So I did look up the numbers on, say, for instance, Seed Freedom, which that opening weekend in Japan, if I remember correctly, opening weekend in Japan, it did 7 million total. And then over the life of Seed Freedom being in theaters in Japan, it amassed $17 million in box office numbers. So comparatively speaking, Zegax did 1 million its opening weekend and is up to 9 million now. So I think that it's pretty much on pace for something that's like it's a new series. It doesn't have
Yeah,
like the legacy following that Seed Freedom did. It's not
right,
being released on the anniversary of anything the way that Seed Freedom was. So it's still not quite apples to apples, but if
right.
that puts it into perspective about like how well it's being received, it is, I would say, a positive reception overall, but you know,
Yeah, and you know what? That's a good point because I wonder how much it matters in the end, like when they're, I guess, calculating how they can make money off of the show, the movie, the anime itself? Is that ticket sales? Is that when
Mhm.
distribution happens? Versus how much they're banking on the Gunpla models, which it could be where it's more of this is budgeted just to be the vehicle to deliver the advertising of the Gunpla model kits, which makes up for that.
Yeah,
I
and I
wonder.
think you and I agree that that's, like, basically like, everything Gundam is to sell them more model kits, right?
Yeah, which is interesting because sometimes when I am from a consumer, even consumer standpoint, when I'm seeing this new story they're telling me, my thought is, okay, they have this new story to tell, and then they'll sell some figures about it. Whereas
Yeah.
really it's more of okay, we're gonna sell this, we need to have it. But I wonder, like, I wonder how much there is a mindset of okay, what is a story we can tell? And then we'll make model kits based on that, which is kind of what the original Gundam was initially.
Yeah, it's, and I always use Transformers as an example because, the history of Transformers. This is what my thesis was in grad school, by the way.
Yeah.
Well, like as far as marketing goes, the history of Transformers is that it was a toy line first, Diaclone, Takara, but the toys
Right.
failed because they didn't have anything. There was no reason to play with a toy that transforms into a car. And then Bob Budiansky comes along from Marvel Comics and starts creating a story around it. It's like, oh no, this isn't a car and a tank. This is an Autobot and a Decepticon. And they've been fighting for millions of years. And it just so happened that they arrived on Earth. And the only way they can blend in is by transforming into the local machinery. And so all of a sudden, now you have a good guy and a bad guy. You don't just have a car and a plane, you have a
Yeah.
hero and a villain. And so that's what really made Transformers sell. Now, to your point, Gundam is kind of it's like halfway there because, obviously they wanted to sell toys, but
Mhm.
like the story did come first and then the model kits didn't come until much, much later. So it was
Yeah.
like,
And in fact, it seems like a lot of times, and I think we get this too when we talk about Zeta, where there are still a lot of cool mobile suit designs that are designed first as mobile suits for the anime because the interpretation as a model kit just hasn't always nailed it. It hasn't always been there. And it's
yeah,
only recently we've been able to do that because a lot of these things can be created in, 3D programs so they can already have everything scaled in proportion the way it wanted, and then that could be duplicated out for different manufacturing for this video game, for that, etc. So it it is interesting to see how that stuff has sort of evolved and changed around.
yeah, for sure. So all of that is to say that tonight is not going to be about bashing G-Quacks. The idea is that we understand the premise of Sieg Axe is that Char Aznable gets his hands on the Gundam before Amuro does, and therefore Zeon wins the war, and ipso facto we have an alternate UC timeline. But I would say that this isn't the first time that we've kind of skated the line of having alt UCs, in the history of the
Mhm.
Gundam franchise. And so I came up with 5 examples. We're probably going to fly through these, honestly, but it'll be fun to kind of speculate on them. And then from there, maybe we'll come up with some examples on the fly and see what other examples of maybe there are other alternate UCs that could have been more interesting than just
Yeah.
Char gets the Gundam.
Okay.
So the first one on my list is what would happen if the ending of Mobile Suit Gundam was the same ending as the novel version, in which Amuro Ray is taken out by a bazooka from a Rick-Dom?
And then what would happen after that? So at what point in the war did this happen?
This happens at a Baoku.
Hmm.
So yeah, the
Is
I
this
have a little primer that I wrote here is like, in the original novelization, the story takes a much darker turn. Amuro is not the hero that survives to fight into Zeta Gundam, but instead meets his hands at the end of a bazooka fire from a Rick-Dom before reaching a Baoku. So without Amuro, the entire fate of the Earth sphere shifts. Some possible outcomes. Obviously, the Gundam is destroyed, potentially captured by Zeon, preventing the technology from advancing within the Federation, therefore no Gundam Mark II. Um, you could say that, like, perhaps Bright Noah and Salem Mass struggle to cope with that. Does Bright retire from the military, or does he continue to serve in spite of not having his new type emblem? And then, of course, If the events of Zeta Gundam unfold without Amuro's influence, does Camille still follow the same path without having that mentor that takes over in Hong Kong? Now that's kind of an interesting one because and I had to think about this because it's like, wait a second. Camille throughout Zeta Gundam is typically, being mentored by Char, but there is that moment when he goes down to Earth, Char makes it back to space, and he's stuck down there, and that's when he gets exposed to 4. And during that time, it's just Amuro and Camille together. Um, but with Amuro gone, does Camille survive the initial fight with 4?
Well, does it even get to that point? Because if because that's what I'm thinking. If I would say, okay, if this happened at a battle of Baoku, like, I would think the Federation would still win, but not necessarily decimate them. Because let's say without Amuro, then Shar and the Elmith can kind of still, because at that point, wasn't the Elmith doing some crazy, like, long range teleportation, just laser firing? Like, it was like where people were starting to sense like that whole lot of like, so she could have probably done some damage, I guess, to the point to where maybe that would have been the super weapon, but it could have been where enough troops had already left Earth. Xeon forces had left Earth. They were pushed back just enough to where maybe Abaoku became a slaughter for both sides, and it's still kind of Earth and Xeon in space. So it never went back to Republic. There was never a reason for Titans to then form. There's never a reason for AU to form. And maybe it's just a further militarization. It was never the 1 year war. So now it's maybe
It
on year
becomes the
two
many
or
years
three.
war.
Yeah. And it could be just a further doubling down. Bright is further up in the ranks. Sayla is maybe further up too. Like they're all like gung ho, maybe about defending Earth Federation. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't see despite that, obviously Xeon was on the back foot at a Baoku, and you
Mhm.
and I talked about this last week on your show actually, is so often you see these kind of big space battles, but then at the end of the day, the real fight for the heart of humanity is happening between like two guys.
Yeah.
You see it in Return of the Jedi when it's like just Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker fighting, even though there's this whole space battle going on in the background. Those
Mm.
two are the real, decisive victory over who really wins the war. So even if Xeon's on the back foot at a Baoku, without Amuro, do the Federation win the war?
Yeah.
Maybe, probably not. Like I
Yeah.
think you're right on the money where it's like,
Yeah. It seems like, because I really do think the Elmith and Lala being around, it just seemed like a super terrible super weapon that would just end up doing a lot of damage, you know? And
mhm,
then I just wonder though, at what point would Lala then realize or think that she's doing too much? Because there's gonna be a point with whatever. At that point, it's whatever Shar is really trying to get done, right? Because he's already got the Zabi family taken care of. So
yeah,
really, does he really need to then invade and take over Earth? Could it be where just there's enough done with the Elmith where they're like, okay, we've got the Earth sphere, and then maybe it's more of a Cold War or a slow like transition of taking over, trying to take over Earth, you know?
yeah. I think that that could be a much more interesting version of Xeon winning the war than just,
Yeah.
Char slaughter,
Yeah, exactly, and
Char total kill.
I feel like he wouldn't be. I feel like it's the death of Lala that made him radicalize in himself into what
Good
he was doing. Yeah.
Yeah, good call out. I think that
Yeah.
radicalized is the term for what happens to Char
Yeah.
because he definitely had a set goal, like you said, with targeting the zombies, and once that was done, it was kind of like rudderless.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Um, so this next one harkens back to a recent release, well, relatively recent that I wish we'd gotten more of. So who remembers this? Kukuru's Doan's Island, the 2002 short anime recreating. Here we have the battle between Doan and the Brown Southern Cross Corps.
Yeah.
There's obviously this scene where one of the pilots, I forget which one of the Southern Cross this is, but the objective here is that they were trying to. Kube was threatening to launch nuclear missiles. Here's said nuclear missile, and Doan and Amuro are there to stop the Brown Southern Cross. So, what if they failed? Even if they were able to defeat them in battle, what if they failed to stop the nuclear launch?
Um, well, yeah, so that's the thing. Wasn't it where was it where there were multiple missiles that were targeted at major cities? Isn't
Yeah, and I believe that they were even they were not like tactical targets. They were like civilian targets.
okay, yeah, because then I wonder if I would still think I don't know. I would still think things could play out the way they did, even if it's just Earth would be in just worse situation. I think the Earth Federation still had enough of its power out in space to maybe avoid damage, but this would set the Earth back, though.
Yeah, for sure. Um, and how would this impact Xeon sentiment? Like, it, we talk a lot about how the nuclear weapons attack in
Oh
0083
yeah,
led to the rise of the Titans. If that had happened, basically we're accelerating that timeline
yeah,
because
good point.
here we are, a Xeon commander that's launching a nuclear attack, violating the Antarctic Treaty well before um, the events of 0083. You know, but at the time, it's not like the Federation had the means to create the Titans. So it's like,
Yeah, and it's kinda interesting because it just so happened because of that lack of means, Xeon just happened to get enough of a foothold on Earth that they could then go into production of a facility to hold a nuke and launch a nuke. That I mean, it's crazy to think that it got that far, you know? And what if that means the idea is the Federation forms some sort of, like, tactical group where it's like an Earth defense force where they are, like, spread throughout the earth, but they're like blending in special forces.
kind of
Um,
like the Manhunters from
yeah,
Hathaway.
kind of like manhunters, but yeah, it's like on Earth ahead of time, just to make sure something like this doesn't happen again. Because it is kind of crazy to think that it would almost be like if all of a sudden China or Russia had a nuke in the U.S. And they're gonna launch it. It's like, "What? How did that get here?" Which it's funny, that was one of the conspiracy theories about the drones that was showing up. They were
Well,
looking for
yeah,
a nuke.
nuke sniffers. Um, and I think that this goes back to one of those themes that there was a conversation on my Discord server the other day. Shout out to Nintendo Gal for bringing this up, actually, because she was mentioning one of the reasons that she enjoyed Unicorn so much was that despite all of the things going on, it was still the kind of hopeful idea that an individual can make a difference. And I think that no
Hmm,
no OVA, no series in the history of Gundam, I think really solidifies that point, quite like the Kukuru's Doan's Island movie, because you're talking about Kukuru's Doan himself, who he is a single guy that made
yeah.
that difference here in this particular instance. Like, if he were not there, Amuro would have gotten beat. Like, that's just y- you know, neither one of them was capable of taking on the Brown Southern Cross by themselves. It took both of them to take them all out, especially Egba, the commander. So that is an instance of like one man making a difference, and not just any man, but actually a defector, like a former Xeon
Yeah.
pilot that's actually working against his own people. So interesting stuff, because like you think about any other characters that you could in theory say like, oh, they prevented a nuclear strike, like Bernie from 0080.
Yeah.
but Bernie didn't stop the nuclear strike.
Yeah.
That's kind of the cruel irony of that, is that it's almost like Kukuru's Doan's Island is the inverse messaging of 0080, because in 0080, what the individuals are doing doesn't matter. What
Right.
Christina and Bernie are fighting for has already been resolved. And
Exactly.
that's what Al is trying to tell them, like, "You guys don't have to fight anymore." And whereas in this, it's the complete opposite. It's like, yes, Amuro and Doan have to fight, because if they don't, these missiles are off.
It's interesting 'cause it again layers Double 80 War in the Pocket even further about its message of, like, how people will kill themselves for war when it doesn't even matter,
Yeah.
because that's exactly what they were doing at the end, you know, having to fight each other, but it actually didn't matter. Even though that would they all had their equipment, it was the 2 sides, they obviously had to fight, like, yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, and with Cuckoo Stones Island, the difference is that it was, yeah, someone that didn't wanna carry this out that was in charge of carrying it out,
Exactly.
and it's kind of interesting then that because then it really makes it where yeah, it's interesting because Bernie is still a Xeon guy, but He you feel for him. But with Cuckoo's Island, if, Doan was still, with Xeon and willing, to shoot the nukes, there would be no sympathy story for him, and that would be, so it's very interesting how they have to kind of frame the characters in order to make a little conflict interesting, almost like a MacGuffin, you know?
Yeah, they do have to kind of create, a reason for them to be a sympathetic character.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I'm not gonna leave you guys without, showing off some of this, sweet Zaku action, so please enjoy.
Oh, yeah.
RIP Danan. So, moving on to the next one that I thought of, and again, these are just ones that I thought of, so, if you have any that are sparking to mind, let me know, Adam.
Okay.
But number 3 is, what if Lala had met Amuro first, as she said in their final moments together? Because obviously, in that epic final battle
Yeah.
between, the Elmeth, the Gelgoog, the Gundam, and Sailor's core fighter, Lala said, "If only I'd met you first."
Yeah, you know what? So this is very interesting because it would be okay. In what context would they have met? Okay, so if she met Amro first, where would she be in life? Is she someone that is just interested in maybe a boy, and then wants to just get into what he's into? Like
Well,
because what?
and where is Amuro maturity-wise? Because in theory, if she's from India
Yeah.
and it was Shar that kind of rescued her from a life of, I think the implication is that he rescued her from a brothel, if I'm not mistaken.
Mhm.
Um, and so if you think about Amuro's time on Earth, he was immature, he was
Yeah.
fleeing from his responsibilities, he was not the person that Lala fell in love with in space. And so
Right.
if you imagine that version of Amuro meeting Lala, would she have, like, drawn the same reaction out of him?
No, that's a good point. I don't even think, um well, you know what? Amuro strikes me as that type of boy that, acts a certain way at first with the ladies.
He's
So
got
I
that new
think
type riz, as the kids would say.
yes, yes, I think he might be able to charm her at first, and then through her, he would mature.
Yeah.
But it's just I wonder where her ideals would be at, especially if she's meeting Amuro and not Shar. Was there something she was already into and something that leaned her into, like, I wonder if for new types at that time, is it kinda like, the few people that get together to do psychedelics, like, late at night, Is it like some people
Yeah.
get together that are new types, and are like, "Oh, what" so it for Lala, was it her and her lifetime or her that time period, about, "Wow, I do have this ability," and then wanting to meet up with like-minded people about it and talk about it and test it out, and you know what I mean? A
Yeah,
and Amuro just kinda didn't seem to care about that or even believe that, you know? Or so I feel like she would be one that picks up on, "Okay, this new type phenomenon is something real, maybe I can utilize it and hone it." She would be looking out for stuff like that.
that's a good point, honestly, because I don't even know if she necessarily knew what her potential was. Like, she knew that she was
Right.
an empath, right? But, but it wasn't until she got tied up with Shar and Cassilia in particular, like, once it was like, "Oh, we've got this guy Shalia Bull, and he's this new type powerhouse that has the ability to read people in combat and things like that." That wasn't even on Lala's radar.
Yeah.
She just knew that she was intuitive and could, empathize with people. And so would would she have been drawn into conflict the same way had she met Amuro instead of Shar first, I should say? Um, or
You
would she have been taken a different direction?
you know, it looks like it seems to me my headcanon is Shar was purposely reducing her engagement with combat, especially how she was utilized by being in a machine. You know, it's almost like there's this separation of her having to physically be there for the combat. So I wonder if to her, she hadn't necessarily faced a situation that made her then question her actions the same way Amuro was early on when he got in the gun and just had to defend what he was doing, you know? Uh,
Yeah.
I wonder if she would feel the same way, but maybe because of the way her new type powers worked and how she was being utilized, again, she was kind of shielded from that. And so it kept her because that's the one thing that it's hard to it's hard to pick up with that character Lala is the combat ability of is she someone that's looking to kill to win or is she just in a situation where she can develop these powers she has and they're doing tests and she's killing people but does she really feel it?
Yeah, and I wonder if that impacted Char's later ideals around what new type potential really was, because as far as we know, he kind of fell into the same camp as Cassilia, where it's like, "Oh, they're just super soldiers. All right."
Yeah,
But I think that Lala really opened those doors for him and made him understand that. Amuro kinda got it from the get-go, like, he understood, like, "Oh, just because you have psychic abilities doesn't mean that you're a super soldier, like, that's not what it means."
yeah.
And he even kind of jokes with, Bright about that, where I think, what it's towards the end of the series when he says something like, "Oh, yeah, no, I totally think that we can win," and Bright's like, "Oh, is that your new type intuition talking?" And he's like, "Yep, absolutely." He's like, "I don't know what
Yeah,
that's not what being a new type means, but I'm just gonna say it because that's what everyone needs to hear right now."
that's pretty good. Yeah. So yeah, I feel like that's an interesting aspect that hasn't been explored in Gundam enough. And I even feel like you could say the same with Star Wars,
Yeah.
when it comes to the Force, it's very surface level.
And see, we had the potential to hear, like, what that could have been like in that, was it ALC Encounter? The
Oh,
short story
yeah,
that occurred. Obviously, it was like, this Lala character awakens the spirits of Shar and Amuro post, Axis shock. So,
hmm,
there's something there.
yeah,
Another example that I wanted to talk about, taking it back even further, would be, looking at the origin. So, similar to Kukuru's Doan's Island, what if Sayla and Char's roles were reversed in Gundam The Origin, in which Edward Moss never becomes Char Aznable, stays on Earth with the Ramba Ral family, all that good stuff, and then Sayla returns to Axis and joins Xeon? Would we have the same ideological fervor from Sayla, as we did from Char, or would there be, I don't know. I mean,
yeah.
where do you think we'd go with that?
Yeah, that's interesting because we would then probably have to have some sort of characteristic about Sayla that exists that doesn't currently. Because I know this was out of the control in universe and the story, but she wasn't even around during Zeta,
Mhm.
so she obviously didn't care that much about the place in the world and where it is based on, her father and everything that went on from there.
But even during the One-Year War, she didn't seek out revenge against the zombies.
Right. So, so I wonder if how that would actually work out. Is it more where it's not that she wants revenge? Is her character changes at that moment of when Shar would have traded places with the guy at the airport or whatever? And does that mean it was Sayla that did that? Okay, so if that's the case, did she want to join and maybe just work up the ranks to then just take over in general? Not necessarily take out the zombies, but that would seem that would have to be the play if you're gonna sneak in that way.
Right.
So, um, I wonder if it'd be something more where almost like what happened to Shar between Zeta and Char's counterattack, something happens to Sayla, maybe, yeah, someone dies, near the end of the One-Year War. What if it was Amuro? And then she goes all,
Well, in
sees Zeon
theory,
and decides to, you know
even if she didn't have the ulterior motives of taking out the zombies, maybe she just wanted to go to Xeon just to go home, you know? And maybe she had to conceal her identity because you know, not because she had some dastardly plan that she was trying to execute, but just for her own safety. And she was rising in the Xeon ranks. She probably would have encountered Amuro at some point, the same way that Shar did. And I think that their fight with one another would be very similar, except in the case of Amuro and Shar, clearly they're fighting over Lala by the end of the series because, not only do they have their ideological differences, but they also have that romantic interest. But with Layla and or Layla? Sayla. I'm mixing up Lala and Sayla. But with Sayla and Amuro, I think that the tension would come from the fact that they are both new types and they do have that connection. And it's almost more similar to Camille and Four, where they're drawn to each other.
Yeah.
And maybe they even confuse that with romance. Probably not, because they didn't seem to click on that level in the series. But they do feel drawn to each other for one reason or another. But because they're just simply on opposite sides of the conflict, they end up fighting one another. Where Shar comes into play, or in this case, he would never become Shar, right? He would still be Edward Moss. Uh, that's a I don't know. Do is would Amuro be trying to keep them apart in order to keep Edward Moss from joining Xeon, or what would be the
Okay, that's interesting because I could see where it's more of a priority for Sayla to want to have Edward or Shard to turn than it would have been for Shar to have his sister. He tried, she didn't want to. He's like, "Okay, well, I gotta do my thing."
yeah
But being a man and how there's still that sort of patriarch role within, Gundam, her trying to get her brother would probably be the main storyline. Yes, it wouldn't be the Revenge of the Zombies. It would be for her brother to join her, almost like a Darth Vader thing, and she might even say to him, "Join me, and we can take control away from the zombies." And then it becomes more of a dual protagonist, Amuro Shar, of like, and then it would no, this would be pretty cool. And then there's times where Sayla and Amuro are meeting, and there is that love interest going on.
yeah
And then, but so it's a triangle, but in a different sort of way. So I think there's something there story-wise I would really like to see. Yeah.
I think that it would be a much more again, a lot of this is just talking about what sort of alternate universal centuries would be more interesting than just Shar stealing the Gundam. I think that
Yeah.
Stela being with Xeon, maybe even one of the things I've talked about before is like, Cassilia knew I think it was by at least, like, episode 20, 25, something like that, Cecilia knew that Shar was Casval, and she
Mm,
let him continue working within the ranks because she knew she could manipulate him. So, in theory, if Cecilia knew who Sayla was, then she would, nurture her and let her develop in much the same way that she let Shar develop. And at that point, it would be Cecilia is the emperor in that analogy,
yeah.
and Sayla is Darth Vader trying to draw Casval in.
No, I totally think that would be the way to do it instead of being it where I would even say that it should be where Sayla's identity is revealed, and
Yeah.
she's almost, like, looked up to as, because even though you had, like, the zombie family, you didn't really see the population of the Zeons really look up to anyone other than Zeon Daikun himself or Shar by the time we get to Shar's counterattack. But what
Yeah.
if you have it where Sayla does become some sort of, princess,
In
type
much the
figure.
same way that Haman used
Oh,
Maneva
Maneva,
in order to
exactly.
take control. Like, Cecilia
Exactly,
would be
yeah,
like, "Oh, well, I adopted Artesia because, the long lost daughter of Xeon," and then
yeah.
tries to oust her father.
I like this. I like this idea.
That could be a fun alternative history.
Yeah,
So I wanna wrap this up with my favorite version of an alt UC that we got a taste of, but we didn't actually get to see in its entirety. Now, this was part of uh, the 40th anniversary celebration, the Beyond Gundam. If you remember, this was like the industrial design Gundam, the short movie that accompanied it.
yeah,
This movie is so fantastic, and it's absolutely that we never got high grade model kits of some of the designs in this. Um, so for one thing, obviously this is just a boring panning shot of the Earth. So G40. First of all, the colony design is different. We have a
yeah,
ring-shaped colony instead of a cylinder, and so it's kinda like Halo in the way that the colony design is.
yeah,
Now, this is what I wanna draw attention to. These Zaku's look fantastic. Dual spike shoulders, they have these rounded shields on their left arms. Um, they
yeah,
just look much more menacing than anything that we've seen in I don't know,
yeah.
like
That does look
any
good.
other interpretation of the Zaku. Even like the Zaku warrior from Seed doesn't hold a candle to this variant of Zaku. Um, this is another thing that I love. The interior of the colony isn't just like prefab shelters and buildings. We have these like this almost looks like Italian inspired like villas. Like this is an awesome looking.
Yeah,
It looks more like a replica of Earth. You have, like, actual bodies of water that people live on, which is freaking fantastic.
yeah.
Then
Oh,
this, of course, is the biggest difference in this universe, is that instead of Temray designing the Gundam, it's Amuro's mother.
that's cool. Totally forgot about this. So
Dude,
glad you
and,
brought this up.
like, for the longest time, what I was thinking about was like, "Man, this Gundam design," when I'm looking at the high grade model kit, I'm like, "This Gundam looks very feminine." Like, it's sleeker, it's skinny,
Yeah,
it's got, like, very, it's just got, like, dainty features, and it's like, duh, because it was designed by his mom and not his dad. Like,
that is cool. That is
it
so
makes
cool.
perfect sense. Um, and then, yeah, everything about the costumes and the designs in this, it's all, like, it's derived from, like, Victorian styles, so it's got kind of that
Mhm.
Tournai, vibe to it.
Oh, yeah.
Um, let's see. Yeah, I mean, these Zaku's.
Even the way his clothes that look that he was wearing. Yeah, that
And then, of course, I would be remiss if I did not bring up, let's take a look at the real hero of the story. I mean, these Zaku's look freaking amazing.
They do, and so, yeah, they only made the, Gundam into a
Yeah,
model
they only
kit.
made the Gundam. Oh yeah, here we have oh, and then yeah, we had specialty model Zaku's that didn't have spiked shoulders, but instead had flap
Oh,
out
yeah.
shields. So they kind of teased like it was going to be a whole new remake series because they captured a few of the iconic moments from the original series and reanimated them using this style, using these designs. I think they should have gone with it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's awesome.
And it would be cool too if they at least made a couple more episodes, even if it's just to round out an arc, a special arc. Now that we know, okay, this is the case, maybe there's a way to tell a condensed story of how it would end if it was like this, where it doesn't have to retell the whole 1-year war or something.
And already we have, like, some key differences that would make it different, like, there seems to be an implication they don't say whether or not this is the case, but there seems to be an implication that his mother is dead and that she is, like, possessing the Gundam
Oh,
because
okay.
in the beginning, he runs away from the Gundam and it, like, chases him into the street and
Yeah.
slams down over top of him. You saw that scene? And then it just starts calling out to him like, "Amuro, Amuro, Amuro,"
Wow.
until he gets inside. And so, you know, that opens up the door for like, okay, instead of the learning computer that Temray designed, what if the whole idea was kind of like what we got in Witch from Mercury, where it's like Amuro's mother basically downloaded herself into this Gundam, and
Yeah.
so she's with him, helping him fight instead of having it be this
Which
AI.
is has been in UC, so that could totally work. Like Blue Destiny, um,
Yeah.
yeah, stuff like that, yeah.
So I think that this would have been my 1,000% preferred alternate UC if we just got, you know, a 40 episode run of Mobile Suit Gundam and like maybe we have the occasional homage. I think that, they could kind of touch on that with this, with some of these occasional callbacks to um with some of these
Yeah.
occasional callbacks to iconic moments from the original series. Obviously, we're losing the head, losing the arm. You see where we're going with this?
Yeah. Hmm.
So we can recreate some of those moments, but then change the context around them. And
Yeah. I think, a kinda alternate sort of UC that I'm into, and I think 0081, the game, kind of taps into that, and it's the RX-78 too, continuing, like, just the 1-year war, sure, maybe that ended. And yeah, there was a Xeon remnants, but more of a concerted war effort, like, where they're kinda continuing that idea of Federation versus Principality of Xeon, Amuro, almost like Captain America, where he's all over the propaganda. He's still going out to fight, and he's like a badass when he's out there. He never has to worry about losing to a Zaku. You
yeah,
know, um,
no, I think that that'd be awesome. And there's so many of those operations, like so in 0080, it's Operation Varuna's Tears, right? That's the Xeon super weapon. In 0083, it's Operation Stardust is using the nukes. Um, in Rise from the Ashes 0079, it's the Astaroth sample, right? Like, which can we talk about what a crazy awesome weapon the Astaroth is, where it's like, oh, we're just going to infest the planet with hyper plant growth.
I know that is a really cool idea, especially you know where it was coming from. But hey, I gotta. I'll be right back. I gotta grab something.
Oh yeah,
I
sure,
know
man.
it's near the end, but
It's all good. So yeah, I mean, that was where I wanted to go with that is like, how can we do something that's, different, a little more interesting than what I think we're getting out of G Quacks. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Oh, shout out to Nintendo Gal in chat. The G40 can do yoga. Yes, it can. Oh, my chat pop-up isn't even loading correctly. See, this is what happens when I start late, is I forget to, um, pop things in correctly. Let's try that again. Um, Ultronomous says, "I never saw this." I will post a link to this video, over on the Discord after this, guys, so that you guys can check out the G40 short movie. It's, it's like 2 minutes long. It's not nothing crazy, but there's so many cool designs to look at. And then, yes, Nintendo got the G40 can do yoga. And I actually got the G40 mixed up with the Beyond Global because they're very similar in terms of their posability and everything.
Oh,
Um,
hey, Steven, so I'm gonna bounce.
oh,
I gotta bounce, but,
sounds
I
good.
will
I hope everything's okay.
nah, the little bit of water running into the house from the
Uh,
rain, yeah.
oh, no. All right. Well,
But I'll
you
talk
take
to you
it
later,
easy.
man.
I'll talk to you later. Cheers, man. On that note, I'm surprised that we lasted throughout the most of the show without having any issues. With that said, hopefully you guys enjoyed going through some of these alt UC alternatives, alternative UC alternatives that Adam and I kind of speculated on with the, again, in reference to the popularity of Gquacks, Gcucks, whatever you want to call it. I'm looking forward to seeing Sieg Axe anyway. I don't, obviously, you guys know I'm not crazy about the designs, but who knows? Maybe the story will win me over. Time will tell. Until then, we're gonna wish Adam good luck. You know, please don't get flooded, and we will catch up with him tomorrow on the Gundam Explained show. If you guys haven't, obviously go check out his review of the GM. The it's one of the Robot Spirits figures, so it's not a Gunpla, but still, if you want your jobby fix, he's reviewing figures over there. So go check that out. Links down in the description. Thank you guys so much for watching tonight. Thank you so much, Ultronomous, for submitting the short story. Well, the short submission. Obviously, I really dig it, and I think we definitely need to keep this Patreon community, whatever you want to call it, community creator spotlight, something like that, CCS, something that rolls off the tongue. We'll workshop it. But thank you for submitting that. It was awesome to share it, and hope you guys enjoyed the show. Thank you all so much. I'll catch you later.